Do you know what you need? Do you know what you really, really need? You need more drum machines. And trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I'm a doctor. Hello. I'm David Haberfeld. I'm also known as the artist Honeysmack, as well as being the editor here at noisegate.com.au. In this two-part series, I'm going to review some of the great features of current-day drum machines, ones that are available on the market right now. But drum machine design have come a long way. If you look back, it's only been like 30, 40 years ago when we had the first fully programmable drum machines came onto the market. And we look at Roland's legacy, the great TR-808, the fantastic TR-909 that have defined electronic dance music. Then we have the modern classics such as the Elektron MachineDrum and the Dave Smith Roger Linn collab on the Tempest. Both no longer available, but modern classics nevertheless. What I know, working as a music technologist and live techno artist for over 30 years, that everyone has an opinion on drum machines. So here is my review of the current machines available on the market. Let's go. Here we have Soma Labs Pulsar23. And you're asking, what the is this? And how is this a drum machine? Good question. I'm glad you asked. This is my personal machine, hence the spaghetti marinara, carbonara, or whatever pasta you would like to eat. So what is the Pulsar23? It is a drum machine, drum synth, whatever you want to call it. We're covering it right now. It has kind of 4 discrete modules, which is bass drum, bass or percussive synth, snare and clap, and hi-hat. And they each have a different filter. Each module has its own looper or sequencer. You complete the patch using alligator clips and these pegs. What I love about the Pulsar23, it invites improvisation. There is no menus. There is no saving of anything. And we have 2 effects. We have a reverb and a delay. We also have a distortion. We also can integrate this with Eurorack system as well as MIDI. So you can control it via MIDI, or you can completely control it via its onboard loopers. You want to have a listen? Of course you do. No, not a drum machine sound. Here is the kind of bass synth. Great low pass filter, resonant as well. Here's the bass drum. And now what about the snare drum or clap? And some hi-hat. Doesn't even sound like a hi-hat. That's what's amazing about it. And some effects. And what the amazing part about the Pulsar23 is that you can route anything to anything. So you can create kind of feedback loops as well, hence the kind of peg system. Now, around the back, we've got what looks like outputs, but they're not outputs. They're outputs and inputs, which means I complete the circuit on the front panel here where it says the quarter jacks, and then I can send anything to kind of any filter on the actual voices themselves. For this jam, I was actually controlling the Pulsar23 with the BeatStep Pro. That's just the way I like to use it, but it's so open-ended. It invites improvisation, as I said before. I love it. So here we have Behringer's RD-8 or Rhythm Designer Mark II. What's the difference, you say? Well, I'm sure you can read about it on the internet. So the RD-8 represents Behringer's one-to-one clone of the classic TR-808. Now, most of us probably can't afford the exorbitant prices of an 808 these days, so the RD-8 Mark II makes for a great, affordable alternative. The RD-8 builds on the 808 as well, with some slight improvements as well. The layout is pretty much, very much the same, but the great thing about the Behringer, the stuff that I love about it, is that we introduce a more complex sequencer, but still very performable and intuitive. You don't even really have to read the manual. I never did, but I do have to make a disclaimer that I was a beta tester on this machine. Behringer introduced things like, polyrhythms, random, probability, flam, which wasn't on the original 808, and a great dual filter, like a high-pass, low-pass filter, and a wave designer, which is a kind of quasi-compressor, so to speak. There is also the note repeat and step repeat, but probably enough of my talking. Oh, sorry, and there's also swing as well, which there was no swing or shuffle on the original 808. So, ooh, very nice indeed. I'll just go through some of the sounds very quickly, not all of them, but some of the kind of evolution from the original 808. So the bass drum actually has tuning on the RD-8 Mark II, whereas the original 808 did not have tuning. It did have tone and decay. Sounds great to me. Also on the hand clap, introduces what's called an offset, which the original didn't have, somewhat like a quasi-reverb, which is pretty cool. And there's also tone on the closed hi-hat, which wasn't on the original either. Okay, let's jam. Here's another little cool feature. You can turn some of the low-end percussion to almost a synth sound. And remember that you can also record the filter automation on the RD-8 Mark II as well. So watch what I do with the low tom. I'm going to make sure I'm sending it to the filter. Then I'm going to note repeat it constantly and play with the filter. Here we go. Oh, and I forgot to mention the other thing I really love about the Behringer RD-8 Mark II is that they've kept true to the original 808 design by having individual outputs for each sound. They've also modernized it with the MIDI interface, so there's a MIDI in, out, and through. There's also a USB interface for connectivity to your computer and also being able to save and recall your sequences. There is also the trigger outs. There's 3 trigger outs for connectivity to your Eurorack gear or other analog synths. And there's also a return, which means you can return an effect through the RD-8 Mark II as well. All in all, Behringer have created an 808 monster right here. Love it. So following Behringer's RD-8 Mark II, we have Behringer's RD-9, Behringer's one-to-one replication of the classic Roland TR-909, sporting the same color scheme and the same connectivity as the RD-8 Mark II, which is individual outs, MIDI connectivity, USB. It has the same dual mode filter and the wave designer, sporting somewhat the same sequencer, although again, I was also one of the beta testers on the RD-9, and I loved how they implemented the extended swing on the RD-9 as well. The RD-9 evolves the sound of the actual original 909 by extending the bass drum and the hi-hat in what's called enhancement mode. So let's have a listen. Here we have the classic 909 kick. Now if I put it into enhancement mode, you'll see we actually get pitch depth and pitch as well. Really extending the sound of that kick. And also the hi-hat as well. So in enhancement mode, the hi-hat has tuning. If I turn the enhancement mode off, we're back to the classic sound. This is probably one of the most anticipated drum machines from Behringer. As you can see, a lot of fun. I also am fortunate to have a 909. It's been one of my favorite drum machines of all time, and this certainly does a great job of replicating it. Sorry, I actually did forget to show you the extended swing function. Let's have a look now. I'm just going to play with the bass, the snare, and the hi-hats, and you'll hear it. So now we're setting it kind of no swing. We increase the swing, naturally. But now we can go lower than 50. There you go. You can thank me for that. look what we have here, the Roland TR-6S. This is the little sibling of the larger TR-8S, sharing many of its features, including, I guess, the firmware as well, in a scaled-down version. Now, I have to be honest with you, when I first started playing with this, I was a little bit frustrated, but that was me. And I can tell you, in a very short period of time, I'm really loving this. I'm really fucking loving this. So, what we have here is a 6-track drum machine. There are 3 ways, just like the TR-8S, there's 3 sound making engines. We've got the ACB, which is Roland's modeling of their legacy drum machines and sounds. We also have a sample engine, so you can import your own samples, and also an FM synth as well. Now, this thing is, with samples, this will pretty much take anything, which is quite easy. Also, this 2-line LED screen is really easy to read and actually has contrast as well. So, everything is customizable. It's very performance orientated. There's effects per track. There's also a master effects section, and yes, it includes things like compression, overdrive, transient, some wonderful effects here. Also, you've got 3 controls per sound, including the actual volume fader. And you also have an assignable control for each sound as well. Now on the TR-8S, of course, you've got more of these controls per channel, but here in a scaled down version. Now, it runs on batteries. It's also USB powered as well. It has, around the back, we have full size MIDI in and out. You've got your left and right out, and also your USB and your SD card slot as well. It does take a short period of time just to navigate the menu system, but I'm telling you, it becomes very intuitive very, very quickly. Of course, it's Roland, so Roland have that legacy and heritage, and it doesn't disappoint if you want those traditional 909, 808, 606, 626, 707 sounds, and so on. But this has way more depth than just that. So it has the bread and butter sounds that you need, and it has kind of like a MIDI synth in there as well. You want to hear what it sounds like, and of course there's plenty of other videos. I only have a short period of time. Here's a little custom kit I made. So it is stacked with kits, stacked with sounds, and then you also have the ability to import your samples. So here's what I've just conjured up, and I've gone for a non-traditional meets traditional sonic palette. So a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new, a little bit of the digital. And again, everything customizable. Let's have a little jam. But wait, what I really love about this is it has motion sequencing. Not only motion sequencing per track and in real time, but also per step. Do you smell a little bit of Elektron there? You might be right. So let's try some of this automation. So quite simply, turn motion on. I'm going to play with the motion or the automation on this particular sound. And let's try it on that kind of busier 16th kind of digital sound as well. It's a lot of fun. I've only scratched the surface. There's also this master effects that can also be automated as part of the pattern as well. Also, each pattern has a number of variations per pattern as well. So you actually have the 8 variations. Is that 8? 2, 4, 6, 8? Yes, I was correct the first time. And also it has like this step loop function where it's really jammable. You might have seen it at the start when I jammed it. So I can just hold down some keys on the sequencer and jam some weird ass beat repeat kind of looping. All very performative. So much depth to this. I love it. Let's hear some other jams. You're still here, so it must mean that I still have your attention. Next up, we have the Elektron Syntakt. Now, for those of you who are familiar with this channel, you would have seen that recently I did a kind of full review of the Syntakt and why I like it. But as part of this video, I still have to present the Syntakt. So here's the very brief version. This is Elektron's kind of best of 12-track drum computer and synthesizer. So it has 8 digital tracks and 4 analog tracks, varying from drum machine, or as Elektron puts it, machines. Say the sources of the sound are called machines, from drums to synths as well. So it really is like a groove box, I would say. It features Elektron's fantastic sequencer with parameter locking. It's being able to record automation, but per step automation, and it's available across all Elektron products, and I'm just a huge fan of it. I think the sound sources here have a great palette, really wide sounding. That's just a quick smattering of them. I'm about to play it, so hold on one sec. You have, your MIDI control in, out, and through. It does actually have an input, so you can actually route external devices through the Syntakt filters. And also, a feature of this machine, which I love, which is not available on any other box, is this analog effects block, which acts like a insert effects that you can actually sequence as just like you do other instruments. This pattern here, I've got some pretty crazy effects and sounds being automated just to give you a big wide spread of just its versatility in sound and sonic ability. The great thing with the Elektron box, this one in particular, it has a control all feature where if I hold down track, I'm changing all the parameters of all the sounds and synths at the same time. Let's get back to it. So that pattern was pretty esoteric. I was stretching it all over the place and just seeing how far I could stretch sounds sonically. But there is another way I like to use the Syntakt, and that's to make bangers. Hey, as you can tell, that's a lot of fun. I'm getting carried away and we could be here all day, but we've got to move on to the next drum machine. Now we come to the small section of our video. Poor dad joke there. But what we have here is the Korg Volca Beats. It's been manufactured for now 10 years, which I think makes it one of the oldest still in production drum machines that we're reviewing in this video. First introduced in 2013, I believe it is. That is 10 years. Thank you, David. Setting off the whole Volca range for Korg. The Volca Beats takes its inspiration from the 808, 909 and other classic drum machines. It sports 10 sounds, 6 analog, 4 digital. It's in a small compact form, has a little speaker underneath. It's battery powered, has a MIDI in, sync in and out via a little stereo mini jack to other Volcas, and now there's adapters you can buy for Volcas as well. And it also has motion sequencing, which is Korg's version of recording automation as well. Now, what I love about the Volca Beats is that the motion sequencing is, you can motion sequence the stutter, which is kind of like a short delay, and also the PCM speed. When the PCM controls somewhat the pitch of the digital sounds, such as the clap, clave, the agogo, and the crash. So here's the clap. And adjusting the PCM speed, you can hear quite a good range of sounds you can get from just those 4 digital sounds. Across on the analog sounds, you've got certain controls, pitch, decay on the snare, you've got high and low tom, and also you close and open hi-hats, and the grain also adjusts the pitch. So again, quite a great range coming out of such a small box. Let's have a listen. So what I love about the Volca Beats is it gives you all those kind of classic sounds in a very small format. It has a speaker underneath, little speaker, battery powered. It's fun, it's intuitive, it's quick to program. Yeah, sure, it only has 8 memory slots, but you can just keep writing over this for days and days. Lots of fun. I love it. Check it out. What's that cacophony, I hear you ask? Well, I don't actually hear you ask because you're behind a screen and this has been recorded before I even met you. But here we have Korg's Volca drum. So an evolution in their Volca series and one of their more recent Volca boxes. This one is a purely digital drum machine, or digital percussion synthesizer as they call it. And I think that's actually a good name for this because it is a 6-part digital drum machine, and each part or each sound has 2 layers. So it actually has 2 oscillators. So the sounds that can come out of this Volca are really quite broad and go well beyond the standard percussion palette of sounds. Now, the evolution of the Volca drum borrows from Korg's previous classics, the Electribes, or the ER Mark 1 and Mark 2, if you remember. So there are similarities in the kind of sounds here, but again, Korg have also evolved a lot of the features in the Volcas themselves. On first look, the Volca drum has a larger screen, which is, I think, the first of this screen type for the Volcas. So somewhat easy to navigate as to where you are because it is a digital little synth. So what I love about the Volca drum is that Korg have actually evolved their motion sequencing, and now they have per step automation or motion sequencing, somewhat like Elektron's p-locking parameter locks. So let me show you very quickly without being a complete tutorial. I have a bass sound repeating 16 steps, and then what I'll do is I'll actually parameter lock the pitches on different steps, like so. Very short example of that. The other thing I love about the Volca drum, it has this waveguide resonator, which is a send effect which you can actually send any of the parts to or amounts thereof. It kind of works between a kind of short delay, creating kind of like carpless tunnel effects from delays to kind of reverbs, but not traditional delays or reverbs. So watch out there. Another thing I love about the Volca drum is if you don't understand digital synthesis, that's okay, because there's a randomize feature for the layer and the pattern itself. Now remember that each part or each sound consists of 2 layers. So you can randomize the layer, and it's a really quick way to finding a sound that you may or may not like. For instance, let me go into play. Here's that bass again. And let me just randomize it until we find something we like. So easy. And again, I didn't have to read the manual to find that out. It's actually all very clear down here. There's some great depth to the Volca drum and its sound design. Check out Leroy's video that we did right here on Noisegate when it was first released. As with all Volcas, small form factor, the MIDI in, battery run, fun, intuitive, quick and easy to handle. Let's have another quick listen to some of the sounds, but obviously check it out for yourself. Next up, Arturia's Drumbrute Impact, taking its legacy from its larger sibling, the Drumbrute. This time they've kind of shrunk it, but I would say shrink. It's a better size. I actually really like this size, and the pads beg to be played with. Now, Arturia call this an analog drum synthesizer. I think this is closer to a drum machine, but that's just semantics. So let's have a look at that. We have 10 sounds, including an FM drum sound, which can almost sound like a synth tone, so to speak. Easily laid out, easy to program, almost no menu diving whatsoever. There is a shift function. What I really like about the Drumbrute is that it has this color feature as well. So certain sounds, you can actually sequence the color, which adds a different tonal or timbral quality to the sound as it's clearly marked out on the front panel. Let's have a listen to some of the sounds. Great kick drum. Two different snare drums. And the color on the second snare makes it a clap. We've got the high and low tom. Where are we? We're up to the cymbal and tom. The open and closed hi-hat, both with their own decay. And tone on the closed hi-hat as well. Then we have the FM drum with pitch modulation, FM amount, decay, carrier and level. Some crazy sounds there. Let's get to a jam. Couple of other features of the Arturia Drumbrute Impact. It has that great roller feature, which you saw me playing it with my finger. You've got polyrhythms, you've got swing, either global or per track, as well as randomness. There's also distortion on the main output, and you actually can switch it on and off and dial the amount. It's syncable to everything. Pads are playable, lots of knobs to twist. Around the back, you've got 5-pin MIDI in and out. You've got your clock in and out. You've got some individual inputs. No, David, individual outputs for some of the sounds. You can read them or check the description or check Arturia's website. We've got audio and headphone. That's it for Arturia Drumbrute Impact. I'm waiting for the chili to hit me. On to the next one. Next up, I'm going to finish my lunch of tuna, rice and beans. No, I'm not. I'm going to show you the Behringer RD-6 computer-controlled analog drum machine. All analog drum machine from Behringer, which is a clone of Roland's legendary TR-6S, somewhat of a baby 808. No screens, easy to program, everything's right in front of you. What I like about this drum machine is that we have individual outs, which the 606 never had. And also, Behringer introduced a clap here, which the original 606 didn't have either. And also, a distortion unit with tone control. And of course, you have MIDI and some other patch points at the top here as well. Let's have a listen. Did someone say acid? right. Are you in the room? Are you relaxed? Are you sitting in a nice chair? Or maybe you're holding your phone in a comfortable position, because next up is Roland's smallest drum machine, the T-8, from their IRA compact series. Now, this little box packs way more than I thought. Yes, nicely surprised. So what we have is 6 rhythm or drum tracks, and you heard it, a 303 bass line synth. Acid, yes, something I'm a little bit familiar with. Now, this is about the size of your phone. It is fun, it is intuitive to play, it has 2 effects, it has overdrive, it has sidechain, and all of these can be per track as well, and per track amounts. You've got decay and tuning on some of the drum sounds. You have all the features of a 303, including cutoff, resonance, pitch, decay, envelope modulation, and also accent and slides. Yes, it has a 4 LED readout. Some of the features, it packs a lot, so some of the features are under some menus, but you get used to it rather quickly, and most of all, it's fun to play with. Let's have a quick preview of the sounds. The bass drum is based on the 909. With decay and tuning, over to the snare drum. There's also a noisier snare that you can choose in the menu as well. Moving over to the clap and the tom. And also the hi-hats. And they choke each other out as well. And of course, I can stop the sequencer now, the bass synth. And it has a keyboard, so you can actually perform it with the keyboard or in a step recorder mode as well. And we can have a play here. Good idea if I turn up the volume, David. With resonance, decay, and you do have the 2 waveforms, whether square or saw wave as well. I mean, I could be for another half an hour playing this. So let's get to another jam. And sidechain. You can hear that pumping. Amazing. And randomize as well. Okay, what else do I like about the T-8? It's got an internal battery, so it's chargeable via USB-C. I think the battery lasts for about 4.5 hours. You've got your MIDI in and out via the MIDI jack adapters. Also, you've got your sync in and out and mix in and out as well. This can fit in your pocket, acid house, techno, and everything else in between for hours and hours and hours and hours. Love it. Oh, sorry. David should have referred to his notes, but he was too busy making acid. It also has probability, velocity, and ratchets per step as well. I mean, there's a whole lot of notes here. I'm sure you can check it out at Roland T-8. Wonderful. Thanks. So there you have it. Now it's your turn to tell me your opinion on which ones you've loved so far. But hang on a sec. There's more. Wait for part 2. Until then, see ya.